Okay, we ran out of space in my camera, so this is part 2 of the roadmap to success. So basically, I was going over petting. It's important we just say just the command word and not good or go. The more words we use, the harder it is for dogs to understand. They typically can the first sound that we say. So sit. I'm talking about it now, so we'll talk about we're going to go through finish up the rest of the rules. Rule number 1, not being allowed in the furniture for 30 days or as long as the problem's still going on. At the end of that period of time, furniture with an invitation per dog, per liberty, or per time, and that's the way you invite a dog up. You didn't need much training for that one. And only for good behavior. So if the dog's up here and it starts barking, it has to get down. And again, I like to teach the dog by just tossing the treat on the ground and saying the word off. But if the dog gets up a second time, then I might kind of nudge the dog. I don't want to put it all the way off. I want to push the dog so it feels like it's about to fall off. So it jumps off on its own. As soon as it does, pet it and say the word off. Other rules, we have a table right here in the Guardians Eat here. The dog should not be allowed. There should be a box that goes from here to the edge of the couch, and this area is not allowed to be entered by the dogs when the humans are eating. There's enough room for them to go to their dog bed, but nowhere else. For dogs to be within 7 feet of anyone who has a high value item is a way of challenging for that. So that's inappropriate to allow the dog to stay there. So not being allowed in here when the humans are eating. The rest of the time they can come and go, unless the humans don't want. So if you remember, I showed you how to kind of block off that area and help the dogs. Just because if you let the dogs force their way through, especially this breed, they're very powerful, very torquey, and they just kind of will shove their way through. That's why I don't ever shove a dog back, because a lot of times that's their way of taking or playing or mounting. And so I don't want to send the wrong message. But when we're hanging out, there's nothing wrong with them coming by if they can do it, but if they start shoving you and being physical, that's a lack of respect for you as an authority figure. So then I would maybe block and not allow them in there, especially if they're doing loops over and over again. They can learn to go elsewhere in the place. Other rule would be not allowed to be in the kitchen when we're preparing food. In the bedroom, not allowed in the bed to sleep, and I would get another dog bed for the bedroom and train it to go there the same way. Then eventually with an invitation only and only for good behavior. So if one of the people who sleeps in the bed doesn't want the dog sleeping between the 2 partners, then that person should be able to exercise that right and say, dog, if you want to be on the bed, you need to be on that corner or that corner. This is my bed. I'm going to be generous and share it with you, but I'm sharing with you the way that I want to share it with you. Now this might be the other guardian who is not in town. They want to have some input on this. But for dogs, if we let them have everything they want whenever they get it, then they don't have any practice at saying no. So when I see a squirrel, I'm going to pull my guardian down the street or down the stairs or whatever it is. And then the dogs practice not listening to us and not behaving the way we want. I also would suggest making the dog sit before we go through the door, sit before we leave the apartment building, sit before we cross any street. And I showed the guardian a little exercise at the door. So instead of letting the dog, we'll let her get up there for now, unless she photobombs. And so when we go to the door, I jiggled the handle. And the dog, I told it, before we got to the door, when we got to the door, I told the dog to sit. And then as soon as I reached for the handle, the dog got up, so I pulled my hand back. So again, recreate that over and over, just pulling back and forth until the dog stays seated. Then I would jiggle the handle a little bit. The dog gets up, I put it back down, tell it to sit, and then jiggle. And you're going to break down each individual step, help the dog practice in the easiest capacity, 1 step at a time, and don't move to the next step until the dog has the first step. Once the dog knows how to do each individual step by itself, then I bring them all back together in the easiest capacity possible. And then gradually I start adding back elements until we work our way back to a real world situation. So I've jokingly said there's no entrapment laws for dogs, so set them up. When we have time to train them, create a scenario where the dog can stumble into doing what you want, you reward the heck out of it, you mark it with a command word, and after enough practice, the dog now knows how to do that particular activity. Let me see, petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose, if the dog comes up and nudges me or jumps up on me and I pet it, anything a dog is doing when I pet it is what I'm amplifying and reinforcing, including unbalanced states of mind like being excited or fearful or scared. So if I have a fearful dog, most people pet, it's okay, buddy, relax. It's okay, buddy, relax. People say the same message and the same mantra and the same cadence and the same inflection in their voice. Well, dogs learn through association. So every time the dog is nervous, if I hear, it's okay, buddy, relax. It's okay, buddy, relax. That keyword can actually become a command word to get nervous. Also, we're going to amplify it by petting the dog. Now, if a dog's nervous, we can lay our hand on the dog and let the dog know I'm here with you without amplifying it. But I see people all the time, the dog is crazy at the door, and they're like, calm down. crazy at the door. Calm down. After a while, the dog's like, calm down clearly means get crazy at the door. I don't know why the human's so mad. I'm doing what they want me to do. Most of us confuse our dogs by coming up with a confusing way of introducing a command word. The dog's on a leash. It gets in front of us. We jerk the leash and say heel. What we mean to say is go back into heel. What the dog hears and learns is heel means this is the point of the walk where the human is going to try to snap my neck. It has no reflection on the good being in the heel position. Now, when you are walking with the dog in the heel position, that's a great time to reach over and give the dog a treat or pet the dog and say the word heel. Now it's in the position you want and you're rewarding. Positive reinforcement is how dogs learn. Negative corrections, they don't really learn from negative or punishment the same way that humans do. And people say, when it works, well, the dog cowers and scared of you if you're laying your hands on or being punishing. I'm not saying that this guardian does, but a lot of people watch my videos and I get arguments all the time. But my dog jumps up and I snap the leash really hard, he doesn't do it again. Yeah, he's fearful. If I have a child that's talking back and I slap the child, I can make the child stop talking back to me. But I'm trading one small problem for a much bigger problem down the road. And the problem with using physical force with dogs is it introduces, I don't say introduces, but it reinforces the concept of using that. And so the dog's like, well, people who are bigger than me and more powerful than me are going to do that to me, then I'm going to do it to those that I perceive to be less authority. So I don't want a dog to walk on a leash because it's fearing a punishment or because I'm pulling it. I want it to do it because I trained it to do so, like we talked about in the video above this one. Let me see. So for petting with a purpose, if the dog comes up and nudges me and tells me what to do and I pet it, I'm telling the dog, yes, you're in charge of me. You're responsible for me. So if I get in trouble, it's your fault. And that makes the dog more reactive and boisterous and a lot of other problems. So instead, when the dog nudges me, I'm going to give the dog a counter order, tell it to sit. When it sits, I'm going to pet it under its chin, say the word sit once and nothing else. And not sit, just sit. And then I can pet it for an hour after that if I want. If the dog demands attention or asks or whatever what verbiage you want to use, but it's initiating the contact, I'm going to tell the dog to do something else, a desired action. Sit. If it's already sitting, ask it to come sit over here or lay down or do something. If I want to pet the dog and the dog's not nudging me, I would still like the guardians to ask the dog to sit. Sitting is a more supportive position. It's a way of saying please or thank you. Tell the dog to sit and it sits, then you reward it. Now you're making the dog more likely to sit again in a different situation because it's been communicated that it gets rewarded. Now I use a watchword for this. I usually say paycheck. If I come in the room and I see somebody is petting the dog without a purpose, I say paycheck. That means excuse me, I think you may have forgot. That person stop petting, don't argue, and tell the dog to sit, and then ask the dog, and then pet the dog and say sit, and say, I asked the dog to sit before he came in the room, and when he opened the door, the dog stood up, and I continued petting, and David said it's okay, which it is. But you're just going to either ask the dog to sit by itself, or the dog is going to start prepaying. It's going to come and sit in front of you saying, hey, I'm sitting down, shouldn't you be petting me right now? And we should as much as we can. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because that's the fastest and easiest way for the dog to get our attention. It steals remote control, we get up and chase it. That's fun for the dog. But it comes and sits in front of you, we just ignore it, keep on watching TV. Well, I did what you want, you blew me off, you did what I don't want, and I get your attention. Attention for dogs is ultimately validating, and they do not care if it's good attention or bad attention. A little bit, but really not. And so most of us train our dogs to misbehave. She's cracking me up. And so by simply telling the dog what it can do to make us happy and petting it and rewarding it, it's more inclined to do so. Now that leads me to what I call passive training, which is the easiest way to train any dogs, what I was talking about earlier either in this segment or the segment above, is every time the dog pro-offers a behavior that I want voluntarily without any influence from me, I reward it. So every time the dog comes to me, we talked about giving the dog different command words. So if maybe every time Ellie comes to me, I say come. Every time Blue comes to me, I might say devil, or return, or whatever the word is, come up with a specific word. That way I can call the dogs independently, which is really helpful. I also would recommend the guardians teach the dogs to stay. If you message me, I can show videos about how I teach dogs to stay. I do it for the 3 Ds. First for duration, teaching the dog to stay right here in front of me for up to 5 minutes. Only then do I start practicing distance. And at first 1 step away and then come back, then 2 steps away. And then eventually 20 steps away. And eventually 20 steps away and out of line of sight. Then when I get to the 5 minutes out of sight, then I'm ready for distractions. Barking, when a dog is barking by, going to the dog park and making the dog sit outside the dog park as dogs are walking in and out. Making it more and more challenging. But again, whenever you're practicing with your dog, put your dog in the easiest capacity first, teach it in a classroom setting individual steps, then gradually work your way back to the real world. I see so many people put their dog, they teach it one thing and then they go to the most difficult extreme and the dog folds and they, why aren't you sitting? You know how to sit great at home. Well, yeah, I know how to sit great at home, but when a marching band is walking around me, that freaks me out and I need to practice that by first sitting 25 feet away from the marching band, then 24, 23, and eventually I can be standing, the marching band can be going around me, and I've been conditioned and trained to ignore that and to stay in place, and because you took your time, I'm able to do that. So passive training, and I use watchwords for this as well. So I usually say testify, because in some of the churches we say testify, and they go praise the Lord. So basically, so you testify, that means you're missing an opportunity to pet the dog. Remember, you have 3 seconds. So if I see the dog walked over to the guardian, I saw it, that's 1 second. The dog sat, or I said to the guardian, testify, that's 2 seconds. The guardian says, what am I rewarding? You blew it. So if I say testify to somebody, I should look at the dog, and whatever the dog's doing. If it's sitting, I pet it and say sit. If it's laying down, I pet it and say crash. Or whatever fun words you want to come up with. Use fun words. Fun words have a positive, I'm not going to go into it, but there's a lot of benefits to it. And one-word commands only, and not a word that we say a lot. That each word needs to have its own unique command or designation. And make a list of command words. So we always say, and I usually say vocabulary for this. So I'm saying come here, and then the word is come. Well, then somebody says vocabulary, I go, come. And the dog comes, I say the word. Now, we have one of the dogs knows lay down or down as the command word. And I would recommend changing that because it also means other things to dogs. And so if I want to do that, if the dog already knows down as the command word, I would say down. When the dog lays down, I would pet it and say crash. So you start with the new word and then end with the old word, and eventually you can say just the old word and they'll do it. And the ultimate way to know the dog has it is the dog crashes the command word. I would say, tell the dog, it's right here, I'd say crash, and turn around so it can't see my face. Dogs can read a human facial expression, they can read your lips. So if you turn away, they're not getting any gesture from they're just doing the auditory command only. Dogs usually learn through a gesture first, then auditory. Okay, petting with a purpose and passive training. If you get in the habit of doing that, every time you pet your dog, it becomes a micro-training session. Really important. Now, we'll actually do it a little bit here, since she's not paying attention. Hey, buddy. Blue. As soon as I did that, she's not doing it. All right, so we'll do it here. See if I can do this over here. Come here, Ellie. Ellie, come. I'm not pulling. I'm just going to hold her by her collar. So I'm going to show how to teach a dog. We'll try to do this real quick. A leave it command. I'm waiting for him to back away from it on his own. He backed away, but now I'm waiting for him to look at me. He's just looking at the treat. He's almost objectifying the treat. Leave it. And then I would take the treat away. Now, first I'm going to drop it, I'm going to cage it, but eventually I'm going to drop it, and I want to be able to lift the cage up, and it stays away from it. And when it looks at me, then I'm going to treat it with the other hand. It's never going to get this treat. Now, message me if you want a better description of that, and I can share a video. But some people will teach the dog not to leave it by like spanking them or slapping something out of their mouth. That doesn't teach them not to leave it. That's just creating a negative association. And it's still, because they really want the object's not going to help. This teaches them looking up and stopping, engaging, and looking at the human gets me a better treat coming from here. He is eating stuff off the street, and he is having some digestive problems as a result. We were just outside, and he picked up a chicken bone, which a cooked chicken bone is dangerous for dogs to have. Raw bones are fine. But little dogs puppies are scavengers, and it's normal for them to put everything into their mouth just like human babies, so we put them in a safe environment. Well, dogs, it's not Venice, but it's Santa Monica. There's stuff on the street. So teaching the dog and practicing in an easy capacity like here first. Then I'm practicing their hallway out there. Put some lunch meat stuff on the ground and help the dog practice passing it up. And then eventually when we get to the street and the dog's getting into trouble, so he just jumped on his guardian's lap, then we can say, you see it coming, and the dog's sniffing, or you say, leave it, it looks up at you, and the treat is coming from above, and it's a good, healthy treat. We know it's not going to cause any problems. In the background, we have some pepperoni. I told the guardians, pepperoni, bacon strips, and milk bones all have known carcinogens in them. They will give dogs cancer. Now, if you have dogs, 2 ways to ward off cancer: to give them carrots and broccoli florets. So I give my dogs carrots as like a snack between lunch and dinner, and it's good and dense. They can chew them up. And then I take once a week, I get broccoli florets, and I sprinkle it across their food. Now, we didn't go over this with the guardian, but right now the dogs are fed twice a day. Dogs eat in the order of their rank. It is the most important activity they participate in. The guardian, dogs do not respectful as well as the other one, I would like to be the one feeding the dogs. And I'm going to show her how to do this after we shoot this video, but the guardian who is feeding them needs to eat something first. Then we're going to feed her next because she's oldest. When she's eating, he's not allowed to come within 7 feet of the food. And the humans are going to be the ones enforcing it. So she sees the humans have her back, and he sees the humans are acting like leaders enforcing the boundaries. And they both see the human eat something first, so the human has more authority. Then when she gets done eating, she walks away, and then any food's left over in her bowl, we pick up her bowl, we dump the food out, put it in the container or bag or whatever it is, you can throw it away if you have to, and then put the bowl down, and she can lick her bowl. And then when she leaves the area, he gets to come in, and there's nothing in her food bowl for him to be interested in. He might lick it, but there's nothing there. Then he goes and eats his food. Now, if they go to their bowl and they're like, I don't feel like eating, and they walk away, as soon as they walk 5 feet away, pick up the bowl, dump the food out of it, and put the empty bowl back down, they don't eat again until the next meal. The dogs need to eat when the humans, when the humans give permission, after the humans see they see the humans eat first. Otherwise, it confuses the dog into thinking that humans have the more authority than they do. Let me see, what else do we go over? Is there anything else you can think of that I forgot?
I think that was all of it. Yeah.
Okay, so now if you have questions, I want you to call or text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. So it's very common to need a little adjustments over the phone. And usually, because we've already gone over all this stuff, I can just show you a little twist that we could talk about over the phone. Or I have videos that I've shown with other clients I can share with you. But I'd like you to be practicing the leave it exercise with each dog separately, like about 3 times a day. And the training sessions, aside from teaching a dog to stay, training sessions be no longer than 90 seconds maximum, and practice in different scenarios. Now for him to stay, I would actually practice, once the dog can stay, when you get to distractions, have the dog practice staying in the little, we have a nice little deck, or I don't know what you call it, right out here, up to the side. And so now you can hear, we're downtown Santa Monica, there's a lot of sounds. And so if a motorcycle or a siren come by and he's practicing staying, that's what we're gonna have when we're out walking. And if one of the dogs gets off loose leash, we'll be able to tell him to stay and count on him staying while I go chase down the other dog. Or I've done this with other people, their dogs get off leash, I can put my dog on stay and I can go help them. So it's really helpful, and also is a command that allows the dogs to develop self-control. Last thing is I'd like the guardians to actually teach the dogs some new tricks and commands. On average, dogs know 10 commands in the United States, and these dogs are smart, but they don't know a ton of commands and tricks. And so what I'd like the guardians to do, each guardian picks 6 tricks or commands. Go to YouTube, just look for fun, and find the easy stuff. People, for some reason, always pick the hardest stuff, and it's discouraging. Just get a couple that are like roll over, play dead, something that they can teach in a day or 2. And then basically all week long, we show the other guardian how to do it, and all week long we practice that with both dogs. The next week, the next guardian on Sunday teaches them a new trick or command, and then we practice that one all week long. So at the end of, if each guardian does it 6 weeks, at the end of 3 months, the dogs should now have 12 new commands, and that is going to help deepen their respect for the guardian. It's going to help give us great ways to distract them, as well as boost their self-esteem. Just like us, when we pass the bar or med boards or whatever it is, we have a sense of pride that kicks in because we accomplished something. It took time, it took effort, it took practice, and we have a self-esteem boost. Same thing happens to dogs. These are not insecure dogs, but I think it will really help engage or a little bit more respect for the humans as authority figures. Okay, well, this is Ellie, and this is Blue, and this is the typical sign of a good, successful session for me. The dogs are exhausted at the end of the session. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.